Thank you. A question that's sort of a follow-on to that from a person in industry on how to counter disinformation. Specifically, who decides what is disinformation and how do we ensure that that decision is based on fact and not opinion, particularly given the comment that you made earlier about facts being distorted by context and used out of place?
So the person who decides what's fact versus opinion is our individuals in a democracy, and that's really important. This is not something where there will be any part of the government that makes that kind of decision. That's what a democracy is. But where we can all do better is to make sure that we're all educated so that we can better understand the difference between facts, opinions, lies. There's a lot there, and that's really important. One of the things on my education slide is a fantastic children's book that I read to my 2 daughters called Facts versus Opinions versus Robots. This type of education about civics has to start at the earliest age possible and continue through. We always, part of being in a democracy is constantly making sure that we are up to date. That's a big task, and it's going to take lots of different players to make sure we get there. But certainly, I think it's something the industry is having to deal with right now as they do try to counter some of the disinformation online. COVID as an example, they've had to really flag things that were being shared, and we're learning a lot in this space as industry and platforms are trying to figure out what is their role in identifying and flagging. I think that flagging is maybe the best thing we can do. I love getting stopped on Twitter saying, "You're about to share this. Would you like to read it first?" I love it, especially when I'm trying to share my own work. Would you like to read this article before you share it broadly? But these little pieces of friction that we can add into the system to make it just a little bit slower of a process. It's not necessarily in the best interest of these platforms that really benefit from more ads and speedy delivery, but it really is going to make our society so much more resilient by making us slow down and be flagged and alerted to something that might be manipulated.